few minutes early today, thank goodness. And, you know, it was kind of draining, like I told you guys, but towards the end, it got just a little bit juicy, okay? It got a little spicy, all right? There was some information, you know, where the prosecution was complaining about the defense, and then they had to speak to the judge. Now, this was after they excused the jury for the day, because apparently they don't want the jury hearing what they were talking about. And so I'll get into that in a moment, but let's talk about Jane Doe. Okay, so after I came back from the break, they were going through some more of her text messages, specifically one from May the 22nd of 2023. Okay, these were text exchanges between Diddy and Jane Doe. Now, Jane Doe sent Diddy a text saying, "Love you, baby. I thank God for you every day." And this is supposedly after they had one of those hotel nights that she was complaining about, saying that she was only doing because she was basically pressured into doing them because Diddy would get agitated if she did. So she's upset about the hotel nights, but telling him that she loves him so much and she thanks God for him every day. Now, Teeny Garagos asked her, she says, "You saw him several times in June of 2023 where there were no hotel nights." Because she's trying to paint the picture that every time she saw him, there were hotel nights. He always wanted her to do this freaky stuff. And likely he did, but basically Teeny was saying there was a point in time where you were not doing those things, okay? And she says that he actually had surgery and you took care of him. Then July the 4th of 2023, she said you all had a hotel night with Paul. Now, that's when Jane says she just wanted to make sure, or she texted Diddy saying, "Just wanted to make you smile." Okay, just wanted to make you smile with you spending so much time. It's like being in the sunshine and laughing and sipping on rosé. So then there was a text message from August the 9th of 2023 where Diddy texts her saying, "Man, last night was off the chain." And then she says, "I was loving it." And then she puts these little hearts and laughing and smiling emojis and all of that. Okay, because they're sitting up there both enjoying an agreement that they had a good time with the hotel night the night before. Okay, then Teeny Garagos asked her, she says, "You testified about an all-star hotel night in August of 2023. Now, if you remember, I told you guys that she was talking about having this all-star hotel night where she would invite their favorite S-workers, okay, the favorite men that she enjoyed sleeping with in front of Diddy. And they were supposed to have this festivity, okay, where they're going to be having an all-star night, okay, like an all-star game or something. I don't know what the prize was going to be, but nonetheless, it was canceled because of a hurricane. And then also her cycle came on, her monthly. Okay, so anyway, she says that Diddy guilt-tripped her. Okay, and then there was a text saying that he sent you flowers. He sent you flowers. And then you got upset. Now, she was happy with the flowers until Teeny says you saw a screenshot where he sent another girl flowers. Now, he not only sent this other girl flowers, but he gave her a note that was very personal. It was very heartfelt, telling her how he felt about her. And Jane Doe saw what he wrote to her. I don't know how she got the screenshot. They didn't say. But nonetheless, she was very upset. Okay, and it seems like she only had a problem when it was something pertaining to other women. Not necessarily a problem with some of these things that Diddy and her were doing. Okay, please pay attention. I'm just telling you all the news as I have gotten it to report, okay? Don't get upset with me. And let me just say, the opinions and views expressed and Miss Jane Doe's testimony have nothing to do with me, okay? So anyway, let's continue. So she got upset about the flowers and the card. And then she says that you saw this very heartfelt message, okay? And you told each other, that's when you told each other that you wanted to break up. So then, under direct exam, she says, you said that you planned to go on a trip with him, okay? And he was supposed to take you on a trip, but then you saw him on a podcast. He was on a podcast with Carisha, AKA Young Miami, bragging about how he was having sex for 48 whole hours. Now, you all heard this the other day, and again, some of this is repetitive because Teeny was basically going through some of her previous testimony during the cross-examination to see if she was going to change her story or whatever, or to inquire more details about it so that hopefully she would find some breadcrumbs that could help Diddy. Okay, please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, she says you all had planned to go on this trip, and then you saw him on a podcast where he bragged about how much sex he had, but he had lied to you and told you that he didn't have sex. And then She says, you also were upset. Now, she was very upset because Diddy just flat out told her that he didn't have any sex with Young Miami on that trip, okay? And then she says, because you had wanted to go on that yacht trip. So apparently this was a yacht trip that Diddy had been planning for a minute, and Jane Doe knew about it or heard about it, and she wanted to go. She'd asked him about it or whatever, but then he decides to take someone else. And then she finds out. So now she's feeling down in the dumps again. She's always talking about how it broke her heart, whatever she's hearing about him and these other women or seeing things posted online. So Jane Doe says, yes, my feelings were hurt because he lied. Then she sent him a text, and the text says, I'm not coming to New York, because she was supposed to be meeting him in New York. Okay, he was supposed to be performing up there. And she says, I'm not coming to New York because you unnecessarily bragged online that you could uck with an F for 48 hours. Then Tini says he would ask you for videos when he was with other women. And then she says yes. So then there was a text that said, I don't want to be locked in a room to fulfill your fantasies. She says, I see how this has come. I see what this is turning into. Now, this is what Jane Doe's telling Diddy. After she starts to realize, listen, no matter what I do, no matter how I try to please you, I'm sitting here massaging your feet, cooking your dinner, rubbing your back, putting on your favorite show. We watch Dateline till you fall asleep. And I'm doing all these hotel nights, but no matter what, you keep me in the dark. You have these other women that you're showing all this love and attention and affection to, like you used to do me when we first went to Turks and Caicos, but now you don't have time for it. So I see what this is becoming. And she starts talking about her opening up Pandora's box again, and basically saying now she can't close it. Now then, here's a text from September the 15th of 2023. Okay, Tini starts talking about this text, and she asks her, she says, the Love album was released on that day, and that's why he was in New York, right? And she says yes. Now that's the reason that Jane Doe was going to fly to New York, because Diddy was there because of the Love album release. So then she says, Jane Doe says yes. And then there is some text messages where she says to Diddy, she says, call me back. And he says, love you, baby, can't wait to see you. And then Jane replies, it's no bad vibes. We just need to be cool right now. She later says that she overreacted. This is what Jane Doe says. She later texts Diddy saying, apologizing basically and saying that she overreacted as it pertained to, I guess, the flowers that were sent to the other woman, and that being the reason that she chose not to fly out to New York to be with him. So then Tini says, you said you were already in the air when he sent you the link to Cowboys and Angels. She says yes. Now remember, she was supposed to be going to visit him, and they were supposed to be spending time alone, but she said mid-air Diddy sends her the link because he's wanting to have another freaky deaky night. So she says he sent you the link to Cowboys and Angels. She says yes. And then they have a text that they read from Diddy where he says, I have something for you. And then he sends her the link to Cowboys and Angels. Jane texts him back and she says, landing right now. And then Tina says, you see that you liked the link, right? And Jane says, she texts him saying that she was at the luggage claim, and then she gave him a thumbs up on his message. And then Tina says, you thumbs up the message. And she basically asked her, what does a thumbs up mean? And she didn't say that it means, okay, that you're liking it or whatever. She said something. I'm trying to think of the words that she used. But we all know that when you thumbs up somebody's text, we all know what that means. Like you're in agreement with it. Okay, like you're good with it. But she didn't say that. She tried to use some other verbiage, to make it look like she wasn't just down with it. Okay. So anyway, then she texts Zero Bond. That's a club. Okay, she texts him 2 clubs that she wanted to go to. One of them was called Zero Bond. Okay, then Tini says at 11:30, you took an 11:30 flight to New York. She says you said that you needed shoes and a stylist, and when you got there, the stylist had shoes to match your dress. And you were happy about that, right? And she said yes. Now she says Mr. Combs said that you didn't have to do it, but you did. Mr. Combs said that you didn't have to do it because you didn't like the chemistry. Now at this point, they're talking about that guy that came in, the guy that she claims was sweaty and musty and she was just grossed out by him, basically. She said she was disgusted. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. There was no chemistry whatsoever. She relayed to Diddy that she didn't want to be bothered with this dude. And so now Tini's asking her about this again because she already testified to this under direct. So she says, you said you didn't like it, you didn't want to do it, you didn't like the chemistry, right? And she says, yes. And she says, Mr. Combs said you didn't have to do it. Then Tini also says, even though you didn't have sex with him, Mr. Combs paid him anyway, right? So then they have a text from Diddy where he says, hey baby, what you doing? I feel so bad. Now I guess he's apologizing for trying to get her to have relations with this man that was funky, sweaty, musty, and stank and all of that. So then Jane Doe says, it's okay, baby. Sent the link for Cowboys and Angels. And then she says she sends the payment. Now, because remember, she was the one setting these things up, just like Cassie was. Diddy was slick enough to get them to set up these nights and to also send the payment, okay, in most of the instances. So she says that, yes, she sent the payment saying that, she says, this is for your bum-ass cowboy. Okay, that's what she said when she sent the payment to Cowboys and Angels. This is for your bum-ass cowboy. And that's the guy that she wasn't attracted to. Because remember, her and Diddy paid him anyway. So then she said, felt no chemistry, but both of them still paid him. She says, you called in Cabral. Now, this is what Tini's asking her under cross. She says, now, that's when you called in Cabral's because you felt guilty for canceling. And that's what she said. She says the only reason she called in Cabral to fly in from Atlanta to have these hotel nights with him is because she felt bad, because she felt like she disappointed Diddy, because she didn't want to have relations with this funky, sweaty, musty man. I don't know why she felt sorry for Diddy, because like I told y'all, I would have told Diddy, you go in there and have relations with him. I'm not sleeping with him. He's funky and nasty. Matter of fact, I'm not sleeping with anybody, okay, at the end of the day. But, you know, it is what it is. So anyway, then she says that she felt fear, okay? She said that she felt fear. And this is what she's saying now. Now, she's already said that she didn't want to get Diddy, you know, she didn't want to disappoint him and didn't want him to be agitated. But then on the stand today, she said that she felt fear. And that's why she was opening up to Cabral. Or she was open to Cabral doing even more with her. Now, I don't know exactly what she meant by more, but whatever her and Cabral were normally doing when they would have these relations, when they would have these hotel nights, this time she was willing to let him do even more. I guess they got more down and dirty, did a little more nasty, kinky stuff because she's trying to make it up to Diddy. So then she says, you were more loose because of the rugs. Yeah, because that's what she says. She says that she did the rugs and that made her more loose and more willing to do it. Now, September the 27th of 2023, Jane Doe sends a text saying, thank you, baby. And she says, thank you, baby. And this is for the explicit things. She said, she sends him a text saying, I love kissing you, holding you. No one can ever compare to you. Love you so, so much. Mind you, this is after all these numerous hotel nights and all these different men that she's claiming that he talked her into or pressured her into sleeping with. So, and I'm not saying he didn't pressure her into doing it, but what I am saying is she absolutely could have said no at any time, okay? That's all I'm saying. Now, with that being said, Tini Garagos then says, did he watch the videos from the New York trip? He watched them with you, the ones with you and Cabral, and he really enjoyed it. And then you invited Cabral to Miami. You testified that around that time, you testified that you saw Gina and she was there. And so that's when she was upset. Now, she had just had this hotel night with Diddy and Cabral, or she filmed this stuff with her and Cabral. It was filmed so Diddy could watch it and get his kicks, which is what he did. And then she got upset when Gina once again pops up into the picture. Okay, please pay attention. So then Jane Doe says, I believe I said that, because she's like, what did you tell Diddy after you found out about Gina, basically? And she says, or after you saw him and Gina, she says, I believe I said, you don't need me. You have what you want. Please stop lying to me. This is what she says. But he's been lying the whole time, clearly. Clearly been lying the whole time. She says, you brought that trash back in. You brought the toxicity back in. I want to protect my peace. And we were doing so good. And here you go, bringing the toxic cycle right back in. Then Garrigo says, can you explain what you mean, by this toxic cycle? And she says, it's the energy. And then Diddy sends her a text message when she's complaining about Gina to him. And he's like, girl, stop. You don't need to do this. Okay, just cut this all out. Well, I don't have time for it. This is what he would always do. Basically just, cut her off whenever she's bringing up these other women. So Tina Garrigo says, do you remember the next day when he asked to see you? And then she said, yeah. And she said she basically, she was trying to be a person who was trying to be healthy, because she was trying to get Diddy to do like a 30-day period cleanse, okay? And so she said she was trying to get him to do this because he was doing all these illegal substances. And remember, she said his gums were turning gray. She said his eyes were yellow like he had jaundice. And he just looked unhealthy from all of the drug use. So she said she was trying to get him to do this 30-day cleanse, trying to be a person who's trying to be healthy, okay? And he was at the club that night. He was at the club now at this night when she's talking about him having his cleanse. But he's still trying to get more. And by more, I mean more rugs and more hotel nights. And then she basically started talking about how she resented Diddy. She said, I resented him for knowing how much I was in love with him. There were so many times that I wanted just to be with him. So she says, you went over to his house. This is what Teeny says. You went over to his house. And basically, he called you and had you come over to the house. And you all had a good time. Even though you were upset, he wooed her back in because he's called her like, yeah, baby, it's all good, baby. Don't worry about it. Listen, girl, stop. You don't need to be worried about these other hoes. Okay, it's all about me and you. Come over to the house. We're going to Netflix and chill. We're going to kick it. Just the two of us. We don't have to do any hotel nights. We don't have to call any entertainers. It's all about me and you. This is what he would say. Okay, clearly running game. So anyway, then they played this audio. Okay? On the audio, now it was kind of funny because the audio was of Diddy. And if I get the audio by the time I get home, I'll play it for you guys tonight. But anyway, it was the audio of Diddy singing. But of course, DC said order in the court. Okay? So with that all being said, Diddy was singing on the audio and like humming, and you can hear him kissing all over her. And she's just laughing like they're having a good old time. And then he said, and this is what Diddy says to her, clearly running game, mind you. Because, of course, she's been complaining about things not going the way she wants them to go, about her feeling like she's been used and abused and manipulated, and he's getting what he wants out of the relationship, and she's not getting everything she wants. She's getting the money, but she's not getting the affection and time and, the love that she wants from him. So he's kissing all over her. She's laughing. And then here's what he says. He says, we're here to pick each other up. We gotta be here for each other. And he's like, Ninja, let me tell you. Hold on, let me get my shades. This is him. Now he's cracking jokes at the same time, but running game also. He's like, let me get my shades. He said, now listen, if one of us gets in a dark place, the other one has to pick the other one up. And then he starts humming and singing again. You hear him kissing all over her. Okay, and she says, you did some saving on me, and I didn't even know it. That's what she tells Diddy when he's doing all of this. She's telling him that he saved her, that he did some saving on her, and she didn't even know it. She didn't even realize it. So Tina Garrigos then says, when he saw you, you were feeling down. When he saw that you were feeling down, he had you come over to his house, and he spent time with you. There was no entertainers, and He was dressed like, wasn't it Halloween and he was dressed like Batman? And then you text KK about there was not going to be any hotel nights, just a nice dinner. Then videos about Cassie surfaced. Videos about Cassie's lawsuits came out. Okay, then you made the decision to break it off. You remember you said that she was you remember that he told you that she was one of his greatest loves. Now, I know that had to sting. That had to hurt. That had to hit you right in the heart. She's sitting there, this man's loving up on her, kissing on her, telling her he loves her. Because he was saying that too. I love you and all of this. We got to stick together. It's about me and you. If one of us is down in the dumps, the other one's got to pick the other one up. We got to walk into the light and get out of this darkness. All this motivational speech that he was giving, okay, as if he was Les Brown or somebody. At the end of the day, he sits there and he's already told her that Cassie was one of his greatest loves. Where does that leave her? And what is she supposed to think? And how is she supposed to feel? Besides like a fool. Because that's exactly how I would have felt, especially after doing all of those nefarious things. So anyway, she says, you remember that he said she was one of his greatest loves and that Gina tormented their relationship. Now, I find that part interesting. Because to me, Diddy needs to sit down somewhere. And by that, I mean in an empty stadium, okay? That's what he needs to do. Because first of all, he's talking about Cassie was one of his greatest loves. I'm pretty sure the other one was Kim. But Gina tormented their relationship? Well, don't blame it on Gina, because how did Gina even get involved in their relationship? Why was Gina even a factor in their relationship, save but for him? I mean, if he was so in love with Cassie, why didn't he treat her like he was in love with her? Why didn't he just not put hands on her? Why didn't he not call her nasty names and just talk to her crazy? Okay, why didn't he show her some trust, more affection and love? Why didn't he do that? Isn't that what people do for their greatest loves? But he's talking about she's one of the greatest loves and Gina tormented the relationship. I'm sorry, but if anybody tormented that relationship, it was absolutely Diddy, okay? Because Diddy is a narcissist and a sociopath, in my opinion. At the end of the day, he wants what he wants, and even if he does care for other people, he doesn't care for them as much as he cares for himself, okay? I think he's in fact incapable of caring for anyone other than himself to a certain extent. Now, right, and with that all being said, he wants to blame these other women for the downfalls of his relationship. And I also find it interesting because, listen, I like Tina Garagos. She's a good attorney. But at the end of the day, I thought it was a little interesting when she's sitting there saying stuff like, she's basically saying that, telling Jane Doe, well, he invited you over for dinner and there was no entertainers. It was just you and him, right? And I'm like, isn't that how it should be? She's acting like he was doing her a favor by not inviting these male S-workers there. She's acting like he's doing her a solid by spending time with her alone, just the two of them. I'm sorry, but that's what he should have always been doing. Instead of introducing her into this debaucherous lifestyle, okay, a lifestyle full of debauchery, okay, nefariousness and explicit things that she may sometimes want to do, but sometimes she may not, okay, at the end of the day. Agent Smith says that old saying, nothing exceeds like excess. I have to agree with you, beloved, okay? Now, with that all being said, and you remind me of that group from back in the day, In Excess. Hi, beloved. And so with that all being said, let's continue. Now, yeah, he blamed it all on Gina, which I found was very interesting. And so here's the thing. So like I said, there was a bit of a back and forth after court was over. The judge asked them who are going to be the next people to testify. So tomorrow, Tina Garagos is going to finish up her cross-examination of Jane Doe. She should be done in the morning. Okay, I'm hoping that before we go to break at about 12:15 or 12:30, that she's done by then. She'll likely be done before then, and they'll probably give us a 15-minute break. I'll run out here and let you guys know. But there's supposed to be 2 more witnesses. James Cross is one of them. And then they're going to also have a summary witness is going to testify. Now, they're likely not going to testify tomorrow, but they did mention that at some point, there's going to be a summary witness. Also, when the judge asked the prosecution, when are they going to rest? which basically means when are they going to be done with all of their witnesses so the defense can start bringing in theirs. So they basically said that they expect to rest a week from Friday. A week from Friday. Possibly even as early as next Wednesday. Okay? So possibly as early as next Wednesday. And they're going to cut some witnesses. They didn't say exactly how many, but the fact that they're going to cut some of the witnesses led the defense to say that they need to make adjustments in the defense's case. Now, Agnifilo stood up and spoke on that, basically saying that, you know, he's going to have to make some adjustments because depending on who the prosecution cuts, that may affect their strategy, okay, what they've got going on. And he said I think he kind of thinks he knows who they're going to cut, but not really certain. And here's the thing that was a big factor today. The prosecution stood up at the end of the day and said that when Tina Garagos asked Jane Doe, who does she think decides the truth? And she said the prosecution. The prosecution had a problem with that. Now, that was yesterday, I believe, when she testified and said that. But the prosecution didn't like that. They said that was an implication to the jurors that possibly the witness is lying or crafting her story to fit the prosecution's narrative or to say whatever the prosecution wants her to say. And they said that's problematic. That should not have been allowed. And basically, they're saying that, they're acting as if that's her motive for her testimony. To which, of course, the defense denied it. And the defense said, basically, this is not that type of situation. They just asked the question or whatever. And so one of them responded. Here's what they said. They said, hold on. Oh, this is what the prosecution said. They said the prosecution should be able to bring that up during redirect on tomorrow. They should be able to bring that point up and be able to debunk it, because they said, here's the thing. She's absolutely not crafting a story for them, because a lot of her testimony came from notes that she took when she was still in a relationship with Diddy. They came from notes that she took that when she got back with him. Okay, even when they were broken up, or after they were broken up, they got back together several times. And so basically, they said it seems as though the defense is trying to act as though her immunity order might be a motive for her to lie or fabricate the story or just say whatever the prosecution wants. Mark Agnifilo stood up and said, no, that's not the case here. He said when that type of testimony comes out, it has nothing to do with this type of scenario. That's usually a situation you have when someone is facing prosecution. That if someone is testifying and they fear that they may get prosecuted for something, that's when they may likely try to craft their story to go along with the prosecution's narrative because they're afraid of going to jail. He said in this case, she has no reason to fear, because I'm sure there's no one in here that thinks that she's going to be prosecuted, right? And to which the judge said, well, wait a minute. What about the Mann Act charges? What about the fact that she testified to transporting illegal substances, okay, to and fro? So with that all been said, she absolutely could have faced charges, hence the reason she was granted immunity. So that's what the judge had to say about it, but Agnifilo was still like, no, he was very adamant. He said, that's not the case here. No one would think that she's going to be prosecuted. He basically was saying that shouldn't even be in her mind. So that would not be a reason for this to be a problem that Teenie asked her about who decides who's telling the truth. So the judge said that's the purpose of the cross-examination. He said at the time, it shows that you may have had a different view. So then under cross-examination, you may have another view. And so, he's basically saying there's nothing wrong with her being asked that question. And also the judge said that they'll have to instruct the jurors. Remember, I told you guys yesterday that they're going to have to thoroughly instruct the jurors on just what it means and what it is, and explain to them how you prove a RICO, how you determine whether or not the RICO has in fact been proven beyond a doubt. So he said they're going to have to instruct the jury also on on where they are in the case. They're going to have to explain that to them. Okay? And then here's another thing. Now, Team Gargos, hold on. Right, so anyway, basically, as I said, they were saying that Tina was trying to imply that Jada might be lying or crafting a story. And so they said they feel like the prosecution, they said that tomorrow they're going to request under redirect, they're going to request that those notes be taken out, that they be omitted, because that should not be allowed is what they're saying. Now, the defense basically said, listen, when a motive to fabricate appears, she was aware of it. No, I'm sorry. If a motive to fabricate had appeared, she would have been aware of it. There was an investigation that began at the moment that Cassie's lawsuit was filed. Now, Cassie's lawsuit was filed in November of 2023. So basically, once Cassie's lawsuit was filed, and she saw, or they're saying that Jane Doe saw that there was a settlement, and it was a huge settlement, even though we didn't know exactly how much it was. We did, in fact, know that there was a huge settlement because of the amount that was requested, which was $30 million. Now, we didn't really find out exactly the amount until the trial started. We found out it was $20 million that was given. But nonetheless, they're saying that she knew that there was a settlement given, and that could have been a motivation for her to lie, because she would want to get a settlement herself. However, she's never filed a civil suit. Okay, she's never made a police report or any of those things. This is what the prosecution brought up. And the prosecution also said, before Tina Garagos asked the question of who determines the truth in the courtroom, that the only motive that the jurors could have felt that Jane Doe would have to not be 100% honest would be the fact that she knew about Cassie's lawsuit, and maybe, you know, implying that maybe she was going to eventually at some point try to file a lawsuit. That's what they were pushing. But they're saying now this is painting a whole nother narrative, that she's up here just saying this to go along with the prosecution because she's afraid that she might go to jail. She might go to prison. So now they want to get into all of that again tomorrow. And the judge said he'll read over the transcripts of the testimony and then render his decision about this complaint in the morning. Okay, so it got a bit juicy. And the government also argued, the prosecution argued, that it was the timing of when Tina Garagos introduced this as a new motive. Okay, and she said it made it seem like there was a motive to lie when previously all they had was Cassie's lawsuit. And also, that's why they want to bring in those notes, because they said in the notes, everything that Jane Doe has been saying on the stand are the same exact things that were in her notes. And that was before the feds even spoke with her, okay? Or before she was granted immunity. She was granted immunity in November of 2024. Okay, that's exactly like a year after Cassie filed the lawsuit. So the judge said, well, that shouldn't be a problem then. He said, because anything she said prior, that's the only thing that should, you know, be effective. That should be relevant. Because if you're going to say that she only could have possibly established to not be truthful, it's because of Cassie's lawsuit, which happened in 2023, then that should only be factored in with things that she said after that, not things that she's saying right here in real time. Those things should be irrelevant. So I'm anxious to see how he's going to rule on this in the morning. Mark Garagos says that's only relevant for someone who fears prosecution. The witness wouldn't think that. And that's when the judge brought up the Mann Act and the illegal substances. Because I was thinking she absolutely could be prosecuted. That's why she got immunity. She did admit to violations of the Mann Act, engaging or the transportation of someone across state lines for the purposes of prostitution. That's in violation of the Mann Act. She admitted to that on the stand. She was hooking up these people. She was getting their flights arranged. Remember, she was using somebody named Jess who was supposedly Diddy's travel agent. So she was in violation of the Mann Act. If they wanted to prosecute her for that, there it is. Also, she did say that she went to KK, and KK had one of the security guards bring her some illegal substances, and she transported them in her bag. I'm sorry, this is all illegal, of which she absolutely could be prosecuted. So hence, like I said, why she was granted immunity. So nice try, Mr. Agnifilo, but okay? I don't think that's going to fly. And I'm just waiting, like I said, to see what the judge is going to say about all of this in the morning. Now, I'm about to be out of here because they're going to start closing up the barricades in a second. It all got real juicy because it was putting me to sleep for a minute. I was about to nod out because it was just getting so repetitious. Okay? It was getting so repetitive. Now I see why they were doing it. Of course, I knew there was a motive to their madness. But she talks in a very low, monotone voice. It's almost like hypnotic, okay, in my opinion. She literally could put you to sleep if you listen long enough. Aqua Girl Rising said, narcissist cannot admit defeat to his own detriment. Exactly. I agree, beloved. I absolutely agree. Now, I think Diddy is low down and dirty. Diddy's low down and dirty, in my opinion, and needs to go to prison. Okay, for some of the things that he's done. Now, I'm not saying that he did all of these things that he's accused of, but I sure think that he did plenty of them. But I also think at the same time that some of the people that have testified need to accept accountability for the role they played. Because here's the thing. Some of the things that people did right along with Diddy and for Diddy, whether they were paid to do it, afraid to not do it, or whatever, actually impacted some other people. And so you have to keep that in mind. So let's not just lose sight of that, and let's not be so, angry when other people have contrary views and opinions. Okay, so my audio's getting choppy. That's my cue to get out of here. Okay, it's about to storm, it looks like, so maybe it's a bad connection. With that all being said, I love you all to life. Please like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Don't forget that I'll be here in the morning. Okay, I'll be boots on the ground until this whole thing is over. And when they come back with a verdict, which I hope is guilty, I hope that it doesn't take them a long time to deliberate. It could take hours. It could take days. You just never know in cases such as this. Okay, if the jury is given thorough instructions as to whether, how the RICO is determined, the guilt or innocence of someone convicted or charged with a RICO, if they fully understand, I don't think they would have a long time to deliberate. I mean, I think the evidence is clear. That's just my opinion. Okay? All right, April. Okay, so anyway, with that all been said, listen. Diddy's winning or losing, says Powell. Right now, he's losing. Right now, he's losing. I mean, in my opinion, all these people have testified to a myriad of things, and most of these things are, in fact, criminal. Okay? Most of these things are criminal. Brian said, thoughts on Mr. Harvey Weinstein. I spoke about that earlier on a previous broadcast, beloved. Please go back and check that out. I already spoke on that. And Harvey Weinstein, I think that he's absolutely guilty. But I heard that the jury cannot come to a decision, which is unfortunate, okay? Because I think that he did most of what he's been accused of as well. He just lucky for him, unfortunate for the victims, got a mistrial, or he got his case overturned. And that was due to prior bad acts. And like I told you guys, expect the same thing to happen to Diddy when he's convicted, okay? I really see that coming. That's just my opinion. But hey, what do I know? Okay, I'm just a content creator down here reporting on this case. All right? Jones said, I heard they found him guilty today. Did they? Well, I hope they did. Okay, I hope they did, because in my opinion, he's as guilty as homemade sin. Okay, so anyway, with that all been said, listen, I love you guys. Okay, make sure you like, share, subscribe to the channel. Okay, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I haven't posted on there in a second, but I'll be posting on there tonight, I think. So anyway, I'll see you all in the morning, okay? I'm going to go live in the morning while I'm waiting to go in. Then I'll go live during the break, and again when everything is over. Okay, they getting better. They better get KK either as a witness or a co-conspirator. she shouldn't walk free. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. But again, I don't know. They haven't mentioned her as of yet. And don't forget, they said today that they're going to be cutting some of the government witnesses. I wonder if she's one of them. I have several questions. But anyway, stay tuned because we're still finding out things, you know, as they come. So anyway, love you all to life. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.